We're
Hello,
live.
hello. Happy
What's up,
Friday.
everybody?
Hello. Hey, y'all. Happy Friday.
How's everybody doing today? Welcome to What the Hell Happened This Week. I'm Dustin Granger.
I'm Danielle Nava, and we have our special guest here today. Nick, we'd love for you to introduce yourself and get us started on what you're running for, what your background is, and where you're from, who's your
y-
mama.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll just say before you start, Nick, that I'm real excited to have you on. I've known about you for a long time here in Louisiana with the work that you've done at the Louisiana Budget Project and as a policy advisor for John Bell Edwards. And, Louisiana Budget Project is now Invest in Louisiana, but it's always been my favorite organization. And yeah, you're a father of three boys, and I see you got a great resume that you graduated from Notre Dame undergraduate, and you uh, got your master's from Georgetown in public policy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Dustin, Danielle, thank y'all so much for having me on the podcast. Great to be live with you and all your guests. So hello to everyone out there from across Louisiana and perhaps beyond. I am Nick Albares, and I qualified for the United States Senate to be your Democratic nominee in the primary on May 16th. So just to do a little housekeeping from the outset, we have closed primaries for the first time. I will be number one on your ballot. I just got my ballot number yesterday from the Secretary of State, but we will have election on May the 16th, and I qualified. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I did so. I feel like we have a really big opportunity in this state to take a step away from the chaos and corruption that is engulfing Washington, D.C. right now. And I feel like while on the other side, the Republican primary has been focused on the candidates fighting one another, my pledge to you, the voter, is that I will be fighting for you. And I will be fighting to build bridges and to get things done. Dustin, you highlighted my bio a bit and my educational journey and some of my work stops along the way. And at every stage, my focus has always been on delivering results, on getting things done for the people that need services. A lot of my work has been in the nonprofit arena. For the past 6 years, I've worked for Volunteers of America here in New Orleans. And so it's always where my heart has been, is what can we do for the people? Because I firmly believe every single person has inherent dignity, and our public policy ought to reflect that. And so that's what this campaign is going to be about. That's what I'm about. As you said, Dustin, I'm a New Orleans native. I was born in New Orleans. I grew up in Alabama, but after Hurricane Katrina, felt a real strong call to be back in New Orleans. And so I was a sophomore in college when the levees broke in New Orleans, and immediately my focus became clear. I needed to be involved in what was happening in the Gulf Coast. And so I began leading groups down to gut out and rebuild houses throughout New Orleans and the surrounding area. But, I realized that it wasn't just houses that needed to be gutted and rebuilt, but we needed to gut out some of the policies that were keeping people entrenched in struggle. And we needed to rebuild policy in a way that allowed everyone to thrive. And so I got involved in policy and decided to go to graduate school to really understand how to get things done in the policy arena. And so that launched my career in public policy. I've been behind the scenes for many years, but I'm ready to step up and step into the struggle to make sure that we can change the course of this country.
I'm excited for you to jump in this race. I love having a good competition. We need some choices here in Louisiana. So thank you very much for stepping up. We got some pretty good news, watching the Texas primaries, seeing how Democrats in a southern state is doing pretty well. So I'm hoping, and I know a lot of people watching this are hoping that we can get a lot of attention in this primary and all the way through to November, and get some excitement going in Louisiana again for the Democrats.
Absolutely. You look at Texas, you look at what happened in Georgia 6 years ago. There is enthusiasm here. What we have to do is organize, 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 organize. That is what I've been telling my team day in, day out. And people are responding to that message. Because when we are organized, when we are ready to meet the challenge of the day, there is nothing that can stop us. And I believe firmly that I am going to win in November. This is not something where I'm not in this to get my name out there or to, just kind of be doing this for fun by any stretch. This is serious. And I believe that when we organize, we will win. And I think that a good indication of where the energy exists here in Louisiana is the vote that we had on the constitutional amendments last year,
Right.
where those amendments, all four went down by a significant margin. And so I think voters are ready to show up. And again, while on the Republican side, you have this immense division, they're trying to compete to see, who can frame the other as the most liberal or who can like be the most proximate to the president. You know, my pitch and my pledge is that while they're busy competing to see who's most proximate to the president, I'm going to be competing to show that I'm most proximate to the people. And that's what I think people want to hear. And I think we have the capacity to build a broad coalition here in this state because at the end of the day, people, I think, want the same things. They want to be able to walk out of their front door onto a street that is safe where their kids can run around. That's one of the things I love about my block is we've got lots of kids and it's an extremely diverse community and people who are working hard, they want to be able to go to a job that pays a fair wage. They want to have good schools for their kids. They want to breathe clean air, drink clean water. And that's what we need to get back towards in terms of our public policy making. And I feel like I have the background and experience to be able to deliver on that. And I'm going to be extremely results oriented, solution oriented as we build the coalition necessary to accomplish these goals.
Yeah, I
And
think Louis. I'm sorry, Danielle.
oh, well, I did want to ask Nick because it's clear you have your background and studying public policy and being on the Louisiana budget. Was there a specific moment though when you knew you wanted to step into this race? Was there like was it planned for a while? Did you know for a while, or was there? I'm just wondering if there was a moment that really made you want to go sign up.
Yeah. It really was that week of qualifying. I had a lot of conversations with my family, a lot of prayer and reflection. And it really was one of these times where it was really on my heart. I remember being in college, like I shared when I came down post Katrina, and feeling that as a real strong pull and call. And it was an extremely similar scenario. And so I know that there is a lot of hard work ahead. And it's hard work that I think will be shared. There are so many people, so much momentum that I've received since I've started this campaign. So many people who are saying, hey, how can I get involved? Because I think there really is a hunger for change. And so in many ways, I think the stage is set. People are ready. People are primed. They just need to feel the hope that we can and will build throughout the state of Louisiana. And so I'm really excited for this process. And I've been really just gratified by all the support that I've received so far.
I really think that Louisiana is a sleeping giant. We've been under Republican rule for a long time now. We did have John Bel Edwards for 8 years, thankfully, but that was majority Republican legislature making the laws, and then a supermajority for part of it. But we have in Louisiana, um, we have a lot of poverty, a lot of child poverty, a lot of health problems, and we have to find a way to, explain and help Louisiana citizens understand that it's democratic policies that have worked for throughout American history, from the New Deal all the way on. And just looking at the stats, Democrat presidents come in power and usually fix a Republican mess, a recession that just happened. Looks like we may be going into another recession, just another year, just 1 year into this presidency. Last Trump presidency ended in a major recession. Um, we almost all job growth over the last 50 years has been with Democratic presidents. Like, we are the jobs party, we're the economic party. Like, how are you going to go out and tell that story to Louisiana citizens? And how do you explain this to them to where it resonates?
Nick, we lost you. We lost your audio.
Yep, still can't hear you, Nick.
Did you maybe lose connection with your AirPods maybe? Still can't hear you.
Let's see. Yeah, maybe check your Bluetooth on your phone. Sorry, everybody. He's in at Dillard University in New Orleans. Outside, he's campaigning a lot and going all around the state and everything. So we knew that this was a possibility in not being near Wi-Fi. So thank you for being patient with us. We'll get Nick connected again.
Still not getting any audio. Since you're okay, he's going to try and rejoin.
Do you need to send another invite to him, or let's see? Let me invite him now. Okay, just invited him. Can't hear any audio. Sorry.
We might have to get rid of the AirPods altogether.
Yeah. Take off the AirPods.
Might get a lot of wind, but
Yeah.
sometimes my AirPods do that where
Oh, I think we just heard a little bit of audio.
Can you hear?
Oh,
yes.
all right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
No. Still no.
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
We can.
we can.
Yep.
We're back.
You got me.
Yeah. Yep.
And it sounds good.
All right.
Sounds pretty
All right.
good.
Yeah,
Sorry,
sounds good.
everybody, for that.
It's okay. We're live,
All right. Yeah, we're here at Dillard. Yeah, we're live. We're here at Dillard University, talking to voters here, and it's a beautiful day. But sorry about the technical difficulties, but we're back. Okay, so where were we?
Yeah, I don't know if you
Please
heard my
repeat
whole
your
thing.
question.
Yeah, just talking about how we're a sleeping giant here in Louisiana. We have very high poverty, and really Republican policy has not really done anything for us the last 20 years with Republicans controlling the legislature, and how are we going to tell that story about how Democrats are good for the economy? We're the jobs party. We're the party of economic growth.
Well, I remember seeing a graphic during the last presidential election, and it talked about the job growth under Republican and Democratic administrations. And there's just no comparison. You can look up the statistics.
Mhm.
And I think one part of that is, governing in a way that is true to best practices and that has policy rigor. And that's one of the things that I think I bring to this race is having a background in public policy, knowing how to get things done and knowing how to leverage what we have in terms of, especially I'm looking at healthcare policy. I think that is one of the issues that I'm going to focus on first when I'm elected to the US Senate, because we have in this so-called big beautiful bill $1 trillion in cuts to healthcare that kick in on January 1st of 2027. So they pushed the implementation date until after the midterm elections because they didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to deal
I
with.
wonder why.
Yeah. So we're going to have to make on the campaign trail to inform voters that you need to vote for the Democrat if you don't want these Medicaid cuts, which were extremely unpopular across party lines, if you don't want those to go into effect. And, here's the thing more broadly. I think back to 2008 when I first started getting into this, and that was when we were having the debate around the Affordable Care Act. And that took a whole lot to get into law. And, that law is not perfect, but it did provide the roadmap for Louisiana to expand health coverage to 500,000 people through the Medicaid expansion, something that I worked to protect and to implement in the
Yeah, thank
Edwards
you for that.
administration.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, Governor Edwards always said that that was the easiest big decision that he was able to make because
Mm.
the way that that policy was set up at the federal level was extremely beneficial to states. There is not a reason that I can imagine why a state did not opt into the Medicaid expansion. And when I'm elected senator, my number one priority will be rolling back those cuts that are in HR 1 while also working to see what we can do to expand Medicaid even further and move towards policies that result in universal health care. Because we are the wealthiest nation on earth. We need billionaires to be paying their fair share so that we can provide basic health care to the people of the country, the people of Louisiana. And so I think that, when we are able to be bold, but also precise and practical and disciplined in how we get things done, we're able to see immense progress. And like you said, we've seen that through the years. Even, the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid expansion, you notice that the current state administration has not tried to roll back Medicaid
Hmm.
expansion. Now, when
Mm-hmm.
I was working, I was volunteering my time because I was working full time on the government side for Governor Edwards. But when we were involved in reelection, there was an effort that our opponent Eddie Risponi at the time was talking about freezing Medicaid, which would have resulted in a massive cut to the program. But you don't hear that talk anymore.
Mm-hmm.
In the when Governor Landry was elected, he pledged to keep Medicaid expansion. But now we see the threat at the federal level, and
Mm.
so that's what we need to be focused on, and we need to have change because too often people get locked into party line votes, and what we need to be focused on are people focused votes. So that's where I come down.
Yeah, that's very important, especially here in Louisiana. We have a large percentage of our population relying on Medicaid. Yeah, and all these cuts that are going to be happening after or starting next year is just going to devastate even our government budget. Like people are going to lose healthcare. This is going to cause people to lose their lives and their loved ones. So many problems. So I like that you're running on that. One thing, Nick, that's kind of a current event right now that is on a lot of people's mind is this war that we have with Iran. Um, to me, it looks like yesterday the war powers resolution failed in the House. But what do you think about that in that debate? What would you do in the Senate if you were in there right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is on people's minds. The people of Louisiana, the people of America do not want us to be entangled in another war in the Middle East. That people are tired of sending, our brave men and women into harm's way. And, tragically, there's already been loss of life in this conflict. And so my heart, my prayers go out to the families of who have been lost. And it's indicative of the chaos that we see in so many decisions by our federal government that seem to be driven by impulse and not by intentionality. And so that's what I would bring to the Senate. The Senate is meant to be a deliberative body. It's meant to have the power to declare war. And look, we can get caught up in the process, but ultimately we need to be focused on the policy. And the policy needs to be something where we rebuild our alliances and are able to work in a multilateral fashion to pursue our goals throughout the world. And so that does mean pursuing democracy and supporting those who are standing up against dictatorships. And we shouldn't be drawn into conflicts and wars of choice that are costing taxpayer dollars, billions of dollars in spending, when folks at home are facing costs that are going through the roof. New reports are coming out and people are feeling it at the gas pump right now. And so, once again, be driven by intentionality in policy, not impulse. And that's what it feels like is being, that's what's going on right now, is that the Congress is not standing up as a co-equal branch of government. It is, just going at the leisure of the executive branch. So I would absolutely stand up against that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he tore up the Iran deal. Like this was destined to happen. Um, and like no like we basically just had a week or two of them like moving battleships over there, and I'm thinking, okay, this, he didn't explain, this administration didn't explain to us why we needed to. It didn't seem to really care at all. And people are just kind of freaked out that, because whenever you just bomb and kill a bunch of leaders, like it's an act of war, and there's going to be some retaliation if it's not even thought through. And we have our own citizens all over the Middle East that are trapped there. Um,
And they're saying that there's no communication with the government to try and get them out either. While all the
this,
other countries are prioritizing getting their citizens out, and the American citizens feel a little abandoned,
yeah,
which is insane.
this is after Republicans really gave it to Biden after the pullout of Afghanistan, to Hillary Clinton with Benghazi. They're doing everything, and didn't even have a plan at all. And it just, I think, being a U.S. citizen, where I'm worried about war and I'm worried about the economy, but it's also just a little terrifying that Trump and the administration can just go like kill people in a kind of international lawless way. To me, it just feels like that if they could do it to them, does that mean he could do whatever he wants to US citizens too? That, I think, is what a lot of Americans are starting to feel, with
And
a president that is,
yeah,
doing stuff with ICE and everything. Like,
and
um,
retaliation. I mean, I'm scared of like the retaliation of all of this.
Yeah. So, 8 months ago, the president said that Iran's nuclear program had been, and I quote, obliterated.
right.
And that was, after, as you said, Dustin, tearing up the Iran nuclear deal. And then putting us into this path of escalation. And now this is a further escalation. And after, it was said that the program had been obliterated. And so the American people need answers. We need to know, what is the plan? What is the exit strategy? And what are the goals? And what is the end game? Because when you enter, it's much easier to get into a war than it is to get out of a war. And so, again, we need to move towards a foreign policy that is intentional, not impulsive, because what we're seeing right now is just us fumbling around into this conflict, driving up gas prices for people, costing people's lives, and without clear goals and objectives for how we prosecute this foreign action, and then how we have an exit strategy. So
Well,
I completely.
yeah, I completely agree. The problem is like they just don't seem to even give a damn that we're calling for that. Like that's completely makes sense before you get into conflicts, have an exit strategy, have a plan. Their response seems to be, eh, eat it. We don't really care what you
Mhm.
say. Like, what do we do in that situation? And like, can the Senate do anything to just kind of make them have a plan or, you know, I don't know. And that's what a lot of people are feeling right now. Like, they're
Yeah,
feeling like
that's
democracy is just like broken. Um, and I don't know enough about parliamentary procedure in the Senate, but how do you think we kind of get through this whenever you have somebody that doesn't seem to care about that?
Well, like you said, I mean, by getting a Senate majority, we need to be able to pass things like war powers resolutions in order for the Senate to take back its position to be the one to declare war. That power in the Constitution is given to the Congress, and so
Yes.
that needs to be paramount. And also, the Congress needs to reassert its oversight role, because look, that's what the people of Louisiana want. Whether you voted for Donald Trump once, twice, three times, or zero times, we still need to. People want checks and balances. People do not want an administration that is able to just insert itself into wars across the world and start wars, for that matter, without consequence. And I think that you're seeing that when you look at the poll numbers, people are fed up. People are tired of what they're seeing in Washington, both domestically and internationally, because it's chaos, really. And you look at what's happening in the Department of Justice, how it's being used and manipulated by the executive branch. That's just another where we see a government agency that is supposed to be independent and uphold the rule of law, and is being used as a tool of the White House. And so we need to move away from that, and we need to work on the issues that people are really concerned about. People are concerned about cost of living. They're concerned about affording health care. They're concerned about having good childcare for their kids. And so this effort right now is just, once again, driving up costs, just like the president's misguided across the board tariff policy was a tax on working families. This is another tax on working families, because it's driving up and it's distracting from the real work that needs to be done in our communities.
And I want to remind listeners that are live right now, ask any questions in the comment. I want to thank Rustin Lloyd, who just said the best antiseptic is daylight. Call hearings, drag them to the hill. Yeah, that's a good point. Like we, I think people will want accountability, so if we win, if we take the Senate, which I really think we can, um, you know, would you plan to do that? Would you plan to call hearings and have some accountability for what some of this administration has done over the past year
Yeah,
and a half?
yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I would say this. I think in 2 years, the White House will flip from red to blue, and I feel like I will hold hearings and hold accountability no matter who the president is. Because I think that's the problem, is that members of the president's own party are too fearful, too involved in their own politics, that they're afraid of accountability. So if I see something, no matter who the president is, no matter their party, yeah, we're holding hearings. We're getting answers to the questions that need to be answered. Because without any type of accountability, without any type of oversight, we're not able to have a government that's functional in the way that the framers intended, with three co-equal branches of government.
Yeah, that the other news that hit yesterday that everybody's talking about was Kristi Noem was fired. You know, I don't know if it, she definitely deserved to be, but sometimes I'm like, is Trump just, um, still on his game show days where he's like, you're fired, and it's like, it's almost like it's entertainment for him. So I don't know what to make of it, but like, what do you think about like what ICE has done? Popularity of ICE, public opinion is just sunk. What do you think it was a good idea that she was fired and replaced? What would the Senate do?
And is
I
it
think I think they're going to be voting on this bill soon about the funding for it.
and is this new guy gonna be even worse? Because doesn't seem to be much there.
Yeah, look, I think people across the political spectrum agree that we don't need roving bands of federal agents who are masked going throughout our community without using any type of due process in their enforcement actions. And I think that it was time for Secretary Noem to go. I think it had gotten to a point where, it seems like, again, internally in the White House, there are is a huge soap opera, right?
Mhm.
It's constant chaos. And so I don't know if that was, a policy thing, but more of a perception thing, where she had fallen out of favor, and the president was no longer feeling like she was, sounding the message and getting across what they needed to, and so she was sacrificed in that way. But I think that, again, we need to get away from a focus on personalities and focus on policies, because what our communities want are safety. Look, people want to be safe, people want to be secure, and people want due process and the rule of law to be paramount. And I think that that's what we need to expect from our federal agencies. And that's something that's been sorely lacking over the course of this administration.
Yeah, Nick, tell us a little bit about what your plans are in this race. I know you mentioned the primaries coming up May 16th, so everybody mark your calendar. And it's a closed primary, so if you're registered Democrat, uh, you can vote for Nick. And also, if you're no party, you can choose to jump into the Democratic primary. So tell us a little bit about what your plans are for the coming year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I encourage everyone to go to nickforlouisiana.com to get involved. It's NICKFOR Louisiana.com. And that's Louisiana all spelled out. So nickforlouisiana.com, you can sign up to volunteer. Certainly, campaigns require funding. And my pledge to people is every dollar that is donated is going to be spent in an extremely intentional way. My focus throughout this campaign is to build community and to make connections, to connect people, to connect ideas, and to organize so that we can build the power that's necessary in order to win this election, but then even more so to transform our communities. So what I'm going to be doing is taking the message to voters. They're actually telling me I need to go inside in just a minute to speak to the to folks here at Dillard, but that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be all on the road. And you can find me, on my social media platforms, which is, one of the things in the 21st century you have to do. But we're doing relational organizing. That's the biggest thing. If everyone who's on this call right now, talks to 5 people about, what we're talking about, and they talk to 5 more, and so on and so forth, then that will ripple out, and we have the capacity to make real change here in our state, here in our country. And that's the message that I'm going to be carrying forth. Because as I said, I believe that every person firmly has inherent dignity, and every person is important. And that I feel like when we realize our own worth and importance, our value, we're able to reach our highest potential when the government sets policies that allow for that flourishing, that make sure that we can go to the doctor, that we can breathe clean air, that we can drink clean water, that our kids have good schools to go to and have early care and education, that we pursue policies like paid family leave. These are the things that we need to be focused on, and we need to step away from the chaos, the corruption that we're seeing coming out of Washington. And so, once again, as the other side is fighting each other, I'm going to be fighting for you. I'm going to be fighting to build bridges and to be disciplined and be results oriented. So that's what we're about, and that's what we're doing, and we're gonna have fun along the way and try to bring joy. But as you said, there are some real serious issues we have in Louisiana. It's time that we get off the bottom of these lists, because too many people are struggling to make ends meet in Louisiana, and high costs of groceries at the retail store, at the pump. Those are the issues people want to hear about, not the constant crisis and chaos of the day. So that's what I'm committed to. And if you're into that as well, find me online and let's get to work.
Thanks, Nick. And I have 2 fire round questions for you before you go.
Yeah.
First of all, Dustin and I are coming to New Orleans next week. Are you planning on going to NOLA Book Fest? And
Uh,
second, will you be there?
well, NOLA Book Fest is an amazing event. I've actually never been. I always look at the lineup and it's like, wow, I need to be there. But then, there's always so many different things with work, but I'm 100% campaigning right now. So
Yeah.
I hope that I can. I need to talk to my scheduler to see if we can work that in. But
Yeah, you should. And then my final question is, as a true Louisianian, what is your favorite type of gumbo? Your favorite flavors?
yeah, so I'm a seafood gumbo guy. I'm not too particular. I know some people are particular about like the color of the root, but like good, like find different varieties.
Don't tell me you like a really thin
No, like
type of root.
I'm
That's an
I'm
important piece of the puzzle.
yeah, I'm not. I, look, I want
It's gotta be
shrimp.
thick.
I want crab. And I need some okra in my gumbo. But I'm a seafood gumbo guy. And but look, like I'm someone who I like a little variety. Variety is the spice of life.
Yes,
So look, when I come to your community, I will try the best gumbo in town. And
it's me.
so yeah, yeah, I I like I like trying different things, but yeah, that's my best. I like the seafood. I like the okra in there too.
Well, thank you, Nick. I know you got to get to a meeting now, and we really thank you for like coming on here and talking to us and allowing the people of Louisiana to hear what you're all about and what you're like. And I do encourage everybody, if you like what Nick said, go to nick4louisiana.com. Donate. Donate what you can. If it's $10, $100, $500, whatever you're able to, and volunteer as well. Like people ask me all the time, what can we do? What can we do? Find somebody that you are inspired by and go help them. There's even an hour a week or an hour a month can go a long way. So we're all in this together. So thank you again, Nick, for joining us.
Thanks, Nick. Good luck.
Thank y'all.
All right, Nick.
Have a
Nick
great weekend.
Albares for Nick Albares for U.S. Senate. Everybody, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.